When we look to the skies above, what do we see? Birds, clouds, aeroplanes? If the answer to this question is yes, then perhaps you may not be looking hard enough. The black helicopter belief is a relatively new conspiracy that has popped up amongst a community of theorists who argue that there are sinister powers at play well beyond our control and in the skies above our heads. There have been many sightings, debates, and deflections with regards to this aerial phenomenon and its purpose. Some believe that the helicopters are merely reconnaissance crafts keeping us safe. Some have other ideas. Whether it be a global assault on our freedoms by way of constant surveillance, or alien-based with mind and body control tactics being used on our soldiers and citizens as part of a New World Order takeover, we must tread carefully when investigating. In this video, we will try to understand what the black helicopters are doing in the skies above us, as well as dissecting the information proposed by both conspiracy theorists and political and military officials alike. So lock your doors and settle in for this episode of Destination Declassified, as we look harder and deeper into the rabbit hole that is the black helicopter conspiracy. So what is the big deal about black helicopters anyway, one may ask? It is certainly common to look up and see, or overhear the sound of helicopters in the sky. Much of our healthcare, rescue and emergency services are reliant on such aircraft, as well as our military and news outlets. Helicopters regularly fly around our airspace for training purposes, or to deliver medication and supplies to those in need, which makes one wonder what the hype is all about. But if we dig a little deeper, it is still unsurprising that the government may wish to implement such methods to monitor and obtain information for secret missions in order to keep the public safe. This is surely what one would expect and wish to happen for the sake of our families and homeland. However, if we continue digging, the concept of spy helicopters being used for covert operations against our will that could decide the future of our civilization, well then things turn very serious very quickly. The origins of the black helicopter legend is not so archaic in terms of the large, structural aircrafts we have become accustomed to. However, an ancient possibility for the first known sightings could stem as far back as the writings in the Holy Bible. American writer Hal Lindsey, a best-selling evangelical writer from Texas, wrote in his book, The Late Great Planet Earth, that the locusts, which are referenced in the book of Revelation within the New Testament, were indeed helicopters emerging from the fiery pit. According to Lindsey, being unable to understand or describe what he was witnessing, John, the evangelist, could only attribute these dark tormentors to that of locusts, whose purpose was to torture those who didn't have the seal of God on their forehead for a period of 5 months. Perhaps this tale may be too outlandish, even for the faithful and religious. However, there are alternative possibilities out there which have raised discussion, debate, and concern. More credible stories of black helicopters began circulating in the 1970s, when the covert imitation airline Air America began test flight operations conducted by the Central Intelligence Agency. The fake airline was the perfect disguise to use highly modified black and gold Hughes OH-6 Cayuse helicopters to conduct aerial reconnaissance and surveillance tests on a short-term basis before retiring them to air bases in Washington, D.C. The official reasons for such missions were said to be for protection and examination of the customs and border force services around the United States. However, there are highly plausible theories that severely counter this argument. The primary belief is that the so-called New World Order, an elite group of the most powerful individuals both in the United States and across the world, are conspiring to initiate a militarized movement to take full control of the population and all its resources. Though some dismiss this to be fact, the rise of CCTV, hackers, and microchipped appliances such as mobile phones, televisions, and laptops have already shown that an Orwellian-style oppression has already begun. The use of helicopters, 5G towers, and satellites orbiting the Earth are just another form of Big Brother watching us on a mass scale. Nanobiotechnology seems to be the goal for the NWO, according to the theory. By shadowing the activities of average citizens, the role of such large supervision by use of the helicopters is to gather strategic information on those who are not easy to control or manipulate. Edward Snowden is a prime example, having been declared an enemy of the state due to his exposure and revealing of these exact surveillance techniques used by the CIA on the general public. The whistleblower has since been on the run and currently resides in an undisclosed location somewhere in Russia, hoping never to be found. Some call Snowden a hero for informing us that our freedoms are under threat. Others portray him as a villain who abused his position and caused nationwide paranoia. Naturally, the United States government's political and intelligence agencies denies that the purpose of the helicopters is for mind control or population management. Instead, they have had to declare surrogate reasons for the aircraft being in the skies. The US Army's 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, as well as other Air Force squadrons, use helicopters painted black, especially the Sikorsky MH-53 Pavlo versions for aerial tasks. These apparent retired models were used for long-range stealth missions for the insertion and extraction of personnel, including combat search and rescue. Again, the Air Force state that exercises are routinely conducted with the intention of protecting and overseeing the customs and border control networks, therefore preventing the movement of drugs in and out of the country. Indeed, the war on drugs is still an ongoing process across the United States, especially in densely populated areas such as New York, Detroit, New Orleans, and Chicago, which is another conspiracy altogether for another day. Undoubtedly, the focus for some conspiracy groups has turned from government control to that of UFOs and aliens. It is often stated and recorded that when a UFO is sighted in the sky, a suspicious aircraft, sometimes helicopter-shaped, is spotted in the local vicinity or nearby landing area. Such theories have been linked to the possibility that governments across the world, especially superpowers such as the United States and China, have direct communications and links to extraterrestrials, and that the secret helicopters are used to direct, support, and cover up any and all UFO visitations or abductions. Such tales are again denied by the highest authorities. However, to believe that contact has already been made with otherworldly beings, and that top-secret facilities such as Area 51 are used for intelligence, interplanetary evidence gathering, is not beyond that of the credulous. The danger, as ever, lies with those who are seeking contact, proof, or attempting to debunk the stories that we are being fed by the government and news outlets. Often considered paranoid or mentally unstable, uncovering certain aspects of top-secret information can lead to freelance investigators, or even regular civilians being watched, hacked, or followed by stealth-like helicopters, or sinister agencies such as the Men in Black. Figureheads like the Edward Snowden and Julian Assange are again prime examples of this and have spoken at length on the matter. Another suspicious entity in relation to the black helicopter conspiracy is that of MKUltra. Many will know from videos on this channel, as well as television shows such as Stranger Things, that the MKUltra project was a mind control experiment conducted by the CIA over a 20-year period from 1953 to 1973. The project included human experimentation using mind-altering drugs such as LSD that could be used in interrogations to manipulate and alter one's mental state, forcing them to make confessions for the benefit of the government, by use of psychological and physical torture through electric shocks, hypnosis, isolation, and even sexual abuse. The test subjects could and would bend to the will of the CIA, being able to completely control and brainwash their subjects. The theory goes that the pilots and crew aboard the helicopters in question are ex-Army or Air Force veterans who have been trained to become assassins with no emotion or recollection of what they do. Under strict instructions through the use of triggers, The test subjects would perform pinpoint aerial operations, as well as taking part in the brainwashing and torture programs of their targets, with immediate effect. Initially, the enemy was considered to be that of the Soviet Union in the early days of the project. However, since then, people believe that this applies to anyone who asks too many questions, or are in defiance to the government at large. When the project was finally exposed, and those responsible being held to account, MKUltra seemingly shut down all its operations, though some believe that such projects are still ongoing to this day. The belief that celebrities, politicians, and other key figures in society are controlled by government agents is not necessarily a new theory, but is certainly terrifying in its supposed purpose. With the assistance of helicopters and other secretive methods, those who can be triggered to influence the populace are continuously used to relay propaganda and brainwashing methods through songs, films, speeches, and other forms of doctrine. The helicopters are used to keep track and ensure there are no glitches in the matrix, where the subjects manage to snap out of their controlled state or begin to act strangely robotic. Most people tend to distance themselves from such claims, criticizing those who propose the possibility by calling them paranoid, geeks, or delusional due to extreme sci-fi influence. So if humans are not the source of the experiments, perhaps animal testing is more likely. The chemtrail theory proposes the possibility that we are being controlled by droplets of a secret formula instilled in the condensation release from aeroplanes in the sky, and is also relative to the animal argument. If kidnapping, brainwashing, and rendering human beings as expendable killing machines seems unlikely, then how are the helicopters assembled, and how can they be operated by themselves? One of the most bizarre conspiracy theories to emerge in this prospect of secretly implanting small crystallized seeds taken from chemtrail formula into a host organism, such as a farm animal, by highly trained scientists. The inoculated seed use nanobiotechnology, which is the term given to phenomena that occurs at dimensions in the nanometer scale, and are utilized in the design, characterization, production, and application of materials or systems. Through such genetic engineering, these seeds will grow within the organs and bloodstream of the animal's body, gathering multiple compounds and eventually morphing into a miniature version of a helicopter device. Once the organs are unable to control or contain the fully grown agent, it will protrude through the animal's skin, escaping into the atmosphere and under the control of the intelligence agency's trained scientists. Although this sounds like something out of a horror movie, the possibility of nanobiotechnology being used on farm animals would leave no specific trace on the animal's lifeless body. Therefore, the cause of death would most likely be put down to that of wolves or other predatory animal attacks. As the small helicopters adapt and are modified to remain out of sight, they can then be used to hover and hide in the closest of proximities to human beings without detection. From there, these cattle-borne weapons can distribute poisonous or mind-altering chemicals to a person considered to be an enemy of the state, in order to erase memories or alter their thought pattern. This psychological intrusion may lead people to believe that they have been abducted by aliens. Far-fetched? Some would say absolutely. However, in the case of the black helicopters, MKUltra, and government mind control, it's worth digging a little deeper and into the life of Frank Olson. Born on July 17, 1910, Olson was an American bacteriologist, biological warfare scientist, and an employee of the United States Army Biological Warfare Labs. Having been declared a test subject by his colleague during a secret meeting with MKUltra officials, Olson would be injected with LSD to put the theories of truth extraction to the test. Unfortunately for Frank Olson and his family, their lives would never be the same again. Refusing to eat, drink, or speak with his wife about what had happened to him was a major concern for the family as a whole. Olson's colleagues and superiors also began to notice a change in his demeanor and attitude as he became extremely withdrawn, as well as overly suspicious and paranoid of everything and everyone around him. After agreeing to undertake psychiatric treatment for his ongoing episodes and delusional behavior, Olsen would check into the Hotel Pennsylvania in New York on November 28, 1953. Tragically, at 2 a.m., Olsen would fall to his death from the top of the Hotel Statler, as it was known at the time. Before taking his final breath, Olsen tried to utter something to the hotel manager, which he was unfortunately unable to interpret. Although no helicopters were seen at the time, one of the possibilities, according to the theorists, is that during human trials, the chemicals used to generate a miniature spy device within the body can lead the host to attempt suicide or encounter spontaneous human combustion. Could it be that the MK Ultra project was the beginning of the Illuminati's use of mind control, brainwashing, and body modification through the use of drugs and chemical exposure? As time has progressed and technology has improved, the ability to microchip our telephones, pets, and other forms of reactive, sensory devices and organisms is not only possible, but unavoidable. To argue that what is being injected into us, either voluntarily or without our knowledge, is a terrifying thought. A growing trend across America is the testimonies of alien abductees. Though generally ignored or ridiculed, those who claim to have been followed by and or taken by UFOs generally recall being injected with unknown substances or having their bodies experimented on. Afterwards, the abductee normally experiences paranoia or the feeling of being watched. Could it also be that government officials are working with extraterrestrials to experiment and introduce new forms of intelligence and materials to justify a worldwide superpower, complete with super weaponry? Let us pray that this is not the case. So when we look to the skies and watch the birds flying overhead, when we gaze at the stars with absolute wonder, or wish we were aboard the aeroplane flying off to distant lands, just remember that it isn't just UFOs that are hiding up there in the clouds. Sometimes the most bizarre and unbelievable stories may just turn out to be the ones that are actually true. But we wouldn't know or remember this either way, would we? Thanks for watching this episode of Destination Declassified. We hope you enjoyed. Don't be afraid. And as always, keep searching.